This is Daniel from Divine Orbit, and you're watching a video about Uranus stationing direct on January 6, 2019. I've been really feeling Uranus all week long because with the Capricorn eclipse happening, there's just been a lot of this really kind of nagging or dragging energy. And Uranus is all of that, like pushing forth, radical energy. And so that's what I'm attributing a lot of the like positive momentum things forward. Even though Uranus right now is stationing, which means it's not really moving at all. It doesn't appear to be moving at all through the skies. But Uranus has that theme of that radical revolutionary symbolism, and in a sign like Aries, where there's lots of fuel and fire, Uranus has no trouble just pushing things along. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about those things. Uranus is also said to be the planet of breakthroughs or breakdowns, and is said to be the modern ruler of Aquarius, although the traditional ruler of Aquarius is Saturn. Uranus makes 84-year cycles around the sun and around the earth, and therefore we see Uranus move into new signs about every 7 or 8 years. And so this is the last part of Uranus going through Aries and going into Taurus for the next 7 to 8 years. So I just made a video about Mars in Aries, so I'm going to use a lot of that same information to describe what the sign of Aries does. Now, Aries is ruled by Mars, so it's a very martial sign, and we can divide it up into 3 parts. The first of which is all about really separating things in that true Mars fashion, just getting things into, this or that, and about using your personal power to do that. The second part of Aries is all about engaging your personal power that you've now proclaimed to the world to create things or to generate things. Aries sometimes is said to be kind of a spark. It's a cardinal sign, and so it's a sign that is starting things, initiating things, and when you separate things, then you're clearly able to say, okay, now here's what I'm going to do now that I've separated things. And the last part of Aries, the very last part, which Uranus has been in for the past few years now, is about expressing your personal perspective and that power that you have in only the way that you can. And this is a very Uranian element too, because Uranus is all about uniqueness and what is the amazing genius thing that is going to come out that could only come out during this time. And so we're seeing a lot of that genius quality in revolution and in the fiery areas of our lives. So take a look at this chart that will remind you what are the themes that Uranus and Aries is giving for you based on your rising sign. So if you don't know your rising zodiac sign, check out the video description below where you'll find a link to calculate that. It's probably not the same as your sun sign. So for example, my sun sign is Gemini, but astrologically, when we think about how planets are going to affect you, we mainly think about your rising sign. So I'm a Sagittarius. So you can check out my other video on Uranus in Aries for a reflection on the things that have happened for me as a Sagittarius rising. But mostly you should check out your rising sign to see what might have been happening astrologically for you over the past 8 years. As we think about the Uranus stationing direct, what that means is that it has been covering ground over the past few months that it's been in retrograde that it had already covered starting in April of 2018. So in April, it was going through the last degrees of Aries, 28 degrees, 29 degrees, and finally the 30th degree. And that and Uranus went into Taurus, but then it stationed retrograde in August, and now we're finally getting out of that. But what that means is that we still have to recover that ground. So the direct station is a really great time to say, all right, what happened the first time in April through August? What happened over the last few months that have maybe been on a delay or revisiting themes or things that I have to redo or re-examine? And now from this point in time, over the next couple months, what can I do to really resolve things? And this being Uranus's final journey exiting Aries, that means a lot of things from the past 8 years should be wrapping up for you, and you're preparing for Aries in Taurus. The other two things that are going to happen in the next couple months, Mars, who entered Aries in right before the new year, rules Aries, and so it is kind of the host now, coming back to its own home, saying, Uranus, you've overstayed your welcome, let's go. And in mid-February, they'll actually directly align before Mars goes into Taurus, and that's a good time for us to really understand the final conclusion. It should be pretty dramatic because whenever Mars and Uranus aspect each other, their energies are very resonant. The symbolism there is just very amplified, and that means that there's going to be a lot happening in that mid-February alignment. And then Uranus will leave Aries in early March, and that's really when we'll start to see some new themes emerge. The two questions that I had from my last video I thought were still relevant, especially because, again, we're at that point in time where we're still not resolved with these Uranus and Aries issues. In fact, this is where we get that opportunity to resolve them. So now, more than ever, think about what you'll take with you about willpower, freedom, and your independence. These are all things that Uranus has been transforming, radically revolutionizing, having breakthroughs. And I think about that a lot with our changing politics and changing Congress. The people are really saying, no, we need a change. We need a revolution. And I'm very inspired by the latest generation of Congress people and Congresswomen especially, and just the diversity that I feel better represents me and my communities. And I think that's a critical lens that we need in that level of government to restore faith and to restore the idea that we can trust the people who are representing us. I think that's super huge and something that has been brewing not just over the past 4 months or 4 to 8 months, but for the past 8 years. And what are you ready to leave behind in a few months from these themes? Personally, I'm ready for Uranus to not be in the sign of Aries, which is a very active sign, and to be in a more chill sign of Taurus so that I can really experience it in a different way. It's still going to be disruptive. It's still going to be radical. But we should start to see that manifest in ways that maybe aren't so hot and are a little bit cooler and drier. And we'll still need to deal with that, but it's things that we will have more energy in the reserves to deal with when the time comes. If you would like to examine more about what Uranus has been doing in your chart for the past 8 years, or what it's going to do for the next 8 years, I'd love to sit down with you in a one-on-one. And you can find information about booking a consultation with me at divine-orbit.com. You'll also find a mailing list in which you'll receive free custom content weekly and monthly emailed to you. And follow me on Facebook and Instagram, where you'll find daily horoscopes that are a little more generic, but are definitely easy to just follow the feed. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next cycle.